Hi there, folks. I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, We Can Inspire and We Can Dispirit. It matters how we be. This Sunday afternoon, Molly and myself will be travelling to Hucklow to spend a few days with new and upcoming ministers at Ministry in the Making. I'm looking forward to it. We have some great people coming through and it feels good to help them in their development in the ways that I can, to offer what I have to them, to inspire them in some ways, I guess. And the theme for this year is the ministry of all believers. How do we believe in our people? I will be leading a workshop exploring how we have been inspired, who have been our inspirations, who believed in us, who didn't believe in us, who dispirited us. It's an opportunity to look at ways in which we might inspire and develop others as they step into their own ministries, I guess. And it got me thinking about some of the inspirations in my life. There are many folk who have inspired me throughout my life, and there are many others who have dispirited me too at different stages. This is, of course, life. It's vital to discern who we listen to, what we take in, what fills our spirit, what spirit we let in, what we are inspired or dispirited by. Now, I recently shared the following story with friends. I like to send things out on WhatsApp, whether it's songs or messages or thoughts of my own or inspiration from others. Some people love it, and I'm sure some don't love it so much. But anyway, regardless, I send it out. Anyway, this is a little tale called Do You Know Who I Am? It goes like this. Journeys on public transport have a sort of regularity about them, but there's always someone who thinks he can beat the system, especially when things are busy. Like on a bank holiday weekend. Picture this scene at, say, Manchester Airport. Travellers, airport personnel, aircrew, people looking for the toilets or a bar, thousands thronging the concourses. At one of the check-in desks for a long-haul flight, there was a snaking queue of people with lots of luggage. The attendant was doing her best to get people through the process as quickly as possible, and most were good-humoured about the wait, except, apparently, for one man, towards the back of the queue. He was getting more and more agitated, and finally he barged through, headed straight for the desk and demanded to be served. The attendant said patiently, Sir, there are lots of people ahead of you, and we're doing our best to get everyone through. Trying to jump the queue will only delay things even more for you and everyone else. Please go back to your place. Well, the man went puce in the face. He leaned over the counter and shouted so that everyone could hear, Do you know who I am? The attendant blinked, took in a breath, and picked up the public address microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a gentleman at check-in desk number 212 who does not know who he is. If anyone is able to identify him and assist him, please let us know. I don't know what happened next. Anyway, I sent it out. I thought people might find it interesting, perhaps amusing, thought-provoking. It got some interesting responses. Most were amused. Some identified, I think. And several actually sent me a video of a character who came into public consciousness about 10 years ago, actually. The man in the video gets into an awful dispute with someone on the road. He's absolutely awful, actually. And he utters the immortal line, "Do you know who I am? I'm Ronnie Pickering." It brought back some awful childhood memories of growing up with a man just like that, actually. A totally dispiriting character. In the video, there is a child in the car with him, looking terrified and trying to hide as they're sat between the Ronnie Pickering and the man on the motorbike who is bawling out. A feeling I remember only too well. Now, thankfully, it didn't descend into violence, which is a memory of mine, sadly. Now, the next day I met with a couple of friends who I've spoken before who are writers. One had shown their husband the video and he was utterly appalled by it. Didn't find it funny at all. And it led to a conversation. We began to talk about characters and folk that people look up to, actually, that somehow admire in strange ways, and folk that we remember throughout our lives. The good ones, those that lift us up, and the more notorious characters too. And interestingly, the evening before, I'd spoken with a friend of mine who said, in rather concerning ways, that his 6-year-old son wants to be a gangster when he grows up. And my friend tried to explain that that's possibly the worst thing you could want to be, aspire to be. And my friend had a difficult life of his own, actually. Doesn't want his son ending up that way. I also talked of a notorious character in the area where I grew up who instilled fear in all they met. He could have been a great world champion boxer, perhaps heavyweight, but was always in bother. And that was Paul Sykes, a notorious hard man from Wakefield. And other characters too, some not pleasant to know, but ones that would bring still fear in people, actually. The conversation then turned to other characters from our childhood that left us with very, very different feelings. I spoke of a character who would walk around the roads of West Yorkshire, dressed as a monk, smiling at people and waving as he smiled. He'd just pass you you'd go past him in the car or something, and you'd see him every few months, or I did. I'd look out for him, actually. He just seemed to be spreading good cheer. I was told he was a monk, although that's not the case, actually. But I described the feeling to my friends that he would instill in me whenever I saw him, how he filled me with a very, very different spirit. He was a mystery, but one who filled me with good feelings, even though I never met him. My friends seemed really interested and thought, that sounds like it would make an excellent television programme, which it probably would if someone was to make it. Anyway, I looked him up, and I knew there'd be something on the internet, and as soon as you type in Mount Monk smiling, waving, walking round Yorkshire, there's a whole load of stuff that Google throws up. Because I knew if it had an impact on me, it must have had the same impact on other people. Well, there's all sorts of there online. It seems his real name was Geoffrey Brindley, known as the Jesus Man of Bradford, or Holy Joe, or the Airedale Monk. I knew him as like just the waving, smiling monk, actually. He wasn't actually a monk. He died in 2015, having spent 50 years walking around the roads of Bradford and the surrounding areas, waving and smiling and spreading love. He was what you might call a harmless eccentric. He died penniless, and when he died, money was raised to give him a funeral at Bradford Cathedral, actually. And the funeral had followed a parade through the city where thousands turned out, like an astronaut returning from the moon or something. There are plans in place to hopefully build a statue in his memory in Baildon, where he lived. There were hundreds and hundreds of messages from people speaking of him and memories of him that he brought to the lives of ordinary people, dating right back to the 1960s when he began walking. I shared then a little later on Facebook myself about this conversation I'd had, and several of my friends from back home shared memories of him and the cheer he brought to the people he met as he walked around, sharing in this loving good spirit as he passed by on the road. Yes, he was eccentric, but a harmless one who people remember with fondness. In fact, he was more than harmless. He brought good spirit. He made people feel good. You looked out for him. I'd be in the car hoping to pass him by because it just filled my heart with love. I think the world needs more holy fools like the Airedale monk or the Jesus man of Bradford, Geoffrey Brindley, far more than the world needs the likes of Paul Sykes and Ronnie Pickering. The world doesn't need people like that so much, but the world is made up of many different people. Maybe they could just learn to be a bit quieter. I'm glad I remember the smiling, waving monk, as I like to call him, and the way I felt when I saw him passing by on the road. It filled my heart with love, and it filled my heart with joy, and it inspired something good in me, something I've been re-feeling and remembering all week, and I've been sharing it too. Been singing some songs and messages to friends. I'm sure some hate them, but some love them. The next evening, actually, I was in Living the Questions, which was on gratitude. Actually, I began talking about this again, actually, and the man Jeff, another Jeff, who led the conversation, actually lived in Bradford for a time, and he said, "Oh, I think that sounds like Holy Joe." That's what they called him then. There was also lots of humour and jokes addressed to me, actually, from people who suggested what the folk of Altrincham might call me. I do spend a lot of my life walking around town, meeting and greeting folk. Although I suspect most of them remember Molly more than me. That strange fellow with a little dog who brings love to the community most of the time. I am here, I hope, to share hope and joy and love and respect. And I hope that lifts folks' spirits. I think it does. And there are many others in this town, actually, that offer similar feelings, that bring to the community, as there are in all towns and all communities, people who lift the spirit. But unfortunately, we don't give them enough attention. We give too much attention to the notorious. That why do they appeal? Why do they grab and suck the oxygen out of communities and places? Why do we still sometimes view those that do good, the do-gooders as they call them now, why do we view them with suspicion? What's that about? Why can't we admire those that lift the spirit? Why do we talk too much about those that dispirit, that bring life down? Why do they get all the attention? Something to think about, perhaps. I've been thinking of late of all the different people who have inspired me, who lifted my spirit. There have been many. As there have been many who have diminished me, made me feel that I was useless, discouraged me, told me I was no good at things, made me feel pretty useless, or that I was useless, that dispirited me. I'm sure it's the same for every single one of us. We have those who have inspired us, and we have those who have dispirited us too. I wonder who and what has been significant in our lives, who and what has touched and shaped our lives, who are the significant people, what are the significant moments and events. We might not remember the events fully, actually, as I don't remember those trips out, but we remember how they made us feel. Or certainly that's how my memory works. And our lives are shaped by every moment and every person we share our lives with. There is no neutrality, you know. I've been thinking of the people who have inspired me, who filled my spirit, who kept me going in darker days. I was sat with several, actually, people who inspired me in my early days as a Unitarian and then into ministry. And it was after the funeral of David Copley, where so many people came to speak of this wonderful man who was quiet in his own way, actually, not a loud kind of person, but a much loved and admired man, and a caring man. And I was sat with some of the people who lit the light in me. It reminded me of that wonderful quote, one of my favourite quotes of all, actually, by Albert Schweitzer. At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. There are many people who have inspired me, who lit the flame within me, who have inspired me to make the best use of what I have and to give back to others, to serve in little and sometimes in bigger ways in this our shared world. You see, there is inspiration everywhere. There are many folk who have no doubt inspired you and inspired all who listen. Inspiration. But what do we mean when we say inspire? It's an interesting word, actually. Yeah, inspire is one of those, like so many words in the English language, in common uses, that we've reduced in its meaning as time has gone by. We have reduced its power as our lives have become secularized, really. Inspire originally meant immediate influence of God, especially with reference to the writing of, say, a holy book. Coming from the French inspiration, meaning inhaling, breathing in. Inspiration. Coming from the Latin inspirare, meaning to breathe in, to inflame. It's more than breath. To inspire means to breathe upon, to blow into, to excite, to inflame, to affect, to arouse, actually. But to do so through spirit or through soul. To inspire is to be engaged in divine activity. So it seems reasonable to conclude that when we inspire others, we are engaged in divine activity. To inspire others is to be engaged in one of the highest forms of love, as it is divine love in action. That's how powerful it can be. So if you're walking around the place that you live in, sharing love, lifting spirits, you are involved in divine activity. Well, in my eyes you are anyway. So go do it with abandon. Likewise, if you're going around dispiriting or instilling fear in others, you are engaged in the exact opposite of that. Call it what you will. But you see, the divine activity takes place in the most ordinary of places, not in the grand and the loud and the showy. But it comes to life in the most humble of activities, in the real ordinary. So shake off your shoes, you walk on holy ground everywhere, and every encounter can be holy if it's done in that spirit. But not everybody agrees that it's in these simple, humble, ordinary acts. That actually the real inspirations are the great figures of history, and we need to build monuments to them. Thomas Carlyle saw the great figures of history as our ultimate inspiration, that life is all about these great men usually. To the geniuses that shape the ages, that it's about these great individuals and the way that they suck oxygen and we give them attention, that, maybe that's true. Celebrities are often called geniuses today, aren't they? And some say the word genius is overused. But actually, I don't think that's true. If anything, the word genius is the most underused word that we used. Because I think it ought to apply to any single person who inspires another to be all that they can be. Anybody that puts that spirit in, that brings that spirit alive. For surely the real genius of any single person is to inspire another to truly come alive. For in so doing, they are breathing new life into another. It's divine activity. And maybe we ought to build monuments, to each and every one of them, like the folk of Bradford would like to do, it seems, for Geoffrey Brinley. Wouldn't our towns and cities look interesting if we did? Maybe we make little ones and put them on our mantelpieces, or maybe we just give little gifts like people do to me all the time. Everyone that we meet and everything that we absorb through our senses can be an inspiration. There are inspirational people all around us, as there has been throughout human history. Some have been the greats, of course they have. They have shaped history. They have named ages after them. They built statues and monuments to their memory. But most of the people that did the wonderful things, the great things that affected people's lives, were forgotten about. They weren't never recognised, except in our hearts and memories. But nevertheless, they inspired us. They awakened something within us. They helped us become the people that we are today. We should recognise them. Build inner monuments in our hearts, perhaps. You see, we can all be inspirations. We all have the genius seed within us. We are all born, we are all graced with certain gifts. The real genius, of course, is the one who can give birth to their gift and inspire others to do the same with theirs. But what do we mean by genius, I guess? Well, throughout human history, this genius within, if you like, has been understood in many different ways. Many, beginning with Plato, actually, for example, talked of each of us being born with a companion, what some might describe as a spirit, actually, that remembers our true nature and therefore our true calling, and which can guide us back to our greatest animation, that soul. It is this that truly brings us alive, that animates our being, that infuses us. Just listen to those words: to animate, to infuse. It's divine activity, it's soul activity. This inner spirit animates our soul. This is the genius within each and every one of us, actually. It has been called by many names: muse, the inner voice, the still small voice, the higher self, the guardian angel. The ancient Greeks called the daemon, for it breathes its life into us and inspires us, and then by acting through that, we inspire others. Maybe we are the genii too. Maybe we bring the soul alive on fire as we inspire, as we breathe in, as we breathe out, actually. And the gifts that life has bestowed upon us, our genii, are not meant to be kept or selfishly hoarded. They are meant to be given away. They are meant to be shared with others. Our task is to make the most of these gifts, to enjoy them, to share them with others, thus inspiring them to make the most of what life has given them. This, I believe, is the point that the Epistle Paul is making, actually, in that first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12. Paul wrote the letter because each member of the congregation, in their struggle to be the perfect congregational leader, was getting in the way of the others. Each one of them wanted to possess all the good qualities that make up a good leader, to become the perfect leader, to leave others in their shadow. But Paul taught that the Spirit does not allow even the possibility that one person can possess all of the talents. That said, if people come together in love, live interdependently, and inspire one another with their gifts, they will create a community for the good of all. For you see, we all have gifts. We all have talents that have been bestowed upon us. And I believe we have the responsibility to learn to use these gifts well, and to recognise that the same Spirit that gave us these gifts requires us to use them cooperatively with those who have different gifts to us, to share abundantly in the gifts. Not to be used lightly or selfishly, neither to be despised or loathed. And in so doing, we will inspire others to do the same, to make the most of what they have been freely given to. So let's be grateful for the gifts that have been bestowed upon us. Let us make the most of these aspects of our humanity that have been given to us. Let us learn to share them with one another. Let us be inspired by one another's gifts and create a true kinship of love right here, right now. Let's breathe our inspiration into one another. Amen. So I'm going to end this devotion with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So let's give our whole hearts to life. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile on you and favour you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you. And may we sing the song of the Eternal. And may we sing it out loud and proud to one another. And may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. Go in love and peace. Amen. Namaste.